think you did is you took a risk, a huge risk, with huge opposition against it. And yet it struck the chord of the masses. And it is a sound of praise and worship in the midst of all this controversy. God injects his narrative and bones rattle. This is the hour. And I've been praising God for you, Sean, because you had the courage. You had the courage to be a hinge of history, God, that actually shapes the future by stepping into the risk like Esther for such a time as this. And that's what happened at the call. Nobody's ever heard of it. A mass gathering to fast and pray. Tell nobody who the speakers are, the worship teams. We would say we've taught our children to feast and play. The times demand they fast and pray. This is not a festival. It's a fast. Those messages went viral. And I believe your message, praise and worship, when they're saying you can't praise and worship and you can't sing, boom, God injects another storyline. Why not that sound erupt for the open fields of America? And on the 25th of October, let it overflow its banks with thousands gathering to worship Jesus at the Capitol. Dude, this is how we live. You know, Sean, once I had a dream. And I had a dream that this man threw his book to me. And it was Erwin McManus. And the book flew toward me. And I grabbed it. And I looked at the book. And it was entitled, Seizing Your Divine Moment. That's the key to making history with God. Seize your divine moment. That's what's going on right now.
Oh gosh, man, Lou, no one catalyzes like you. It really is. And you know, I think looking at what you've pioneered and so many others in your generation, you know, it was the courage that called us into this space. It just seems so crazy because we're in such a season where there's even a hatred, even for many in the church, and a spite against really standing up in this season. And there's so much political pressure, and there's so much a divisiveness that's happening right now. Obviously, this is an election year. The same thing was happening in 2000. I think it was Bush Gore, that election that was coming up. Why do you feel like what is significant about this season, about this election, about the Supreme Court nominee? Like, why does this, and to me, I'm just being honest with me, I feel like this is a divine setup from heaven. You've lived a lot longer than me. You've seen a lot more. What do you feel like right now in this, leading up to November 3rd? Why is this so significant? I just want people to get your heart here.
Well, I've been pretty possessed recently because 16 years ago, God gave me a word that I would raise up a prayer movement for the ending of abortion. Abortion is not a social issue. It's a fixed moral standard.
Come on.
When the church, when the world begins to legalize the breaking of fixed moral standards, then nations come under the scrutiny and judgment of the Lord. In 1973, the courts of America removed the foundational fixed moral standard from the book of Genesis. You shall not shed innocent blood, for in the image of God, he created man. There is a doctrine of the shedding of innocent blood. It's so valuable, God, you do not shed innocent blood. We have 60 million babies' blood that is crying out from the ground for judgment in America. The slavery issue in that day was crying out for judgment in America. God deals with nations on this. So here we are in the midst of the coronavirus, bam. Then the riots break out. And I believe what happened with George Floyd was an unveiling of the bloodshed of African American, the bloodshed of Native, it's all crying out from the ground. And then in the midst of this, suddenly on the 18th, Rosh Hashanah, the blowing of the trumpet, the 10 days of awe, and Sunday, or whatever, Monday, was the Day of Atonement when God deals with nations. The day that only the atoning blood of Jesus can wash away the bloodshed of this nation. On the 18th, Ruth Ginsburg dies. Why doesn't she die 7 months before? Why doesn't she die after the elections? It's my conviction she was the woman who actually presided over the most horrific rulings concerning the killing of infants, even infanticide. I believe God set that up. 2 years ago, we had a dream given to us. And in the dream, my friend who runs Bound for Life, Matt Lockett, had a dream, and he saw Vice President Pence's wife, and she was concerned, so concerned about the Supreme Court. And in the dream, he is her bodyguard, and he says to her, remember the name Amy Coney Barrett. Remember the name. 2 years ago, we had been praying Amy Coney Barrett for 2 years. God suddenly injects in the middle of all this stuff. He changes the conversation from the coronavirus to the courts because he's bringing Roe v. Wade to court. Right now, this nation is in a court case with heaven. What will you do in this election? Choose life or choose death? I believe this moment could actually lead us to a civil war if we don't understand what God is doing right now. He is driving Roe v. Wade to a conclusion. We've had dreams of the trail of death. We've had dreams recently of a volleyball court. And one side is blue and one side is red on the court. And in the dream, it's 20-20. And the blue side has been spiking the ball even out of bounds, but they're still getting points illegally. I believe it is this, that when they changed the boundaries of what life is and when life begins, they started getting demonic points over this nation. They've been changing the boundaries. But in the dream, I called a timeout. He knew in the dream that 2020, it was 2020, it is now time for the battle over the courts. Wow. I gathered my team together in the dream. I was leading the red court, and I pulled them aside, and I pulled out an old playbook, and I blew the dust off of it, and it was Reese Howell's playbook, and it was called PB for the Battle of Britain, and PB was pleading the blood.
Wow.
In the dream, I said, everyone now is a spiker, even the server is a spiker, and everyone must move to the front line to begin to spike the better blood. And we begin to spike, and we won by 2 points.
Wow.
22-20. This is our only plea before this nation. It is the blood of Jesus that speaks better than the blood of George Floyd, than the blood of the murders and the killings of Christ, than the blood of the unborn. Right now, for the next 30 days, we are spiking the blood of Jesus. Jesus, we plead, 22-word prayer. Jesus, I plead your blood over my sins and the sins of my nation. God, end abortion, send revival to America. We believe in the next 30 days, a spiritual war is going on. Whether or not the prayers of the saints will shift the Supreme Court. And Amy Coney Barrett, a pro-life Catholic, will become the next Supreme Court justice. We could be in the days of the reversal of Roe v. Wade. I believe that's what this election is about. God has driven this nation to a decision point. I don't know if that makes sense, but
I'm just getting so choked up because I remember praying, when I was 17 on the mall, and just praying that God would raise up, justices, and he would raise up senators and congressmen, and he would raise up people that would stand for life. And I got the bracelet, and and prayed the prayer. But then in the following years, it just seemed like it just got worse. And I remember one day looking down at the life band on my arm, and it was like, you know, it was all tattered. And I just was like, man, we've been praying this prayer. I mean, I kept it on my arm, Lou, for probably 2 years. All my pictures in high school, you could see, you know, football pictures, everything, you could see the life band. But I just got so disheartened because it was like, man, nothing's changing. In fact, it's going in the opposite way. Like what do our prayers even matter? And I think I'm getting so emotional because now here we are 20 years later, and it's actually looks like it's possible. Like God could shift this whole thing in our generation. And, you know, I remember we were in Tampa a week or two ago, and we were worshiping, and there was thousands of people there. People are getting healed and saved and delivered. It's been happening every night. It's just been phenomenal. And then I heard the news about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I just turned and looked to my wife, and I said, babe, I think this is a setup. Like, I think the Lord. And then I got news from my friends in government that said that they're going to start the vote. They're going to start the vote on the floor on October 26th, Monday after our gathering. And I just came unglued because I felt like the Lord was saying those prayers mattered. Those prayers were changing things. You know, you have to stay with it. And so that's really, I think this is a full circle moment for me, because all those years I had that life band on my wrist and I prayed. I just felt like, God, I wanted to see the fulfillment of it. It kept getting worse. And here we are 20 years later, and we're going to stand on that same piece of real estate in America. And we're going to be praying for life. We're going to be praying for the ending of abortion in America and the reversal of the death decree. And we're actually, the day after we gather, they're going to be voting to put in somebody that can actually turn the tide for that entire issue since 1973. And this Saturday, Lou, we're going to be in Dallas, and we're marching all the way to the steps of that courthouse where Roe v. Wade was put into law. We're going to stand on that courthouse this Saturday in Dallas, Texas, and we're going to worship and declare that this is the hour where things are turning and it's going to shift.
That's incredible. You're going to the court office of, I think it's called Wade Courthouse, where Roe v. Wade legalized the shedding of innocent blood of the unborn.
Yeah.
You know, Sean, this moves me just you saying it, because I know a lot of people just kind of thought it was impossible. Many of your generation are not even making this a major issue in their own lives concerning even the elections.
Yeah.
And I understand that President Trump is a hard pill to swallow, but he's also the most pro-life president in modern history that we've ever had. I was called to raise up a prayer movement for the ending of abortion while reading a book by William Wilberforce